This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Our underground network is standing by at the drop zone to distribute.
The transmission is being jammed. Looks like the Empire came out to welcome us.
Attention, Rebel Convoy. This system is under Imperial control. Stand down or be destroyed.
What a surprise. Star Wars Sabers and Scoundrels.
Starships.
Carabast.
Yeah.
Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. A Scoundrel Special Edition.
Greetings, Scoundrels. We're back. And welcome to this Scoundrel Special Edition. I'm Dennis, and of course I have Darth Taxus and Jay Cribbs with me. How are you both doing this evening?
Hello.
Doing great. Ready to get into this? This were two excellent episodes. How about you, Taxus?
Doing pretty good. I'm recording from a secret location that's undisclosed tonight. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
It's the broom closet on the third floor of the Assessor Collector.
Close. It's the toilet.
Oh, so close. All right. Well, tonight we are discussing two episodes of Rebels, Kindred and Crawler Commanders. If you are new to the show, as I've been saying for the past few weeks, or you weren't listening during season 3 of Rebels, our Scoundrel Special Editions are our off-week shows covering recent episodes of Rebels or other content, usually comics. It's a scaled-down version of the show without most of the segments you might be familiar with. With that out of the way, Taxus, sound the spoiler alert because this is a spoiler-filled discussion. And here is the summary for our first episode, which is called Kindred. Grand Admiral Thrawn has dispatched his agent, the Noghri Rukh, to assist Governor Pryce track down the rebels and his stolen hyperdrive and flight data recorder. After sniffing out Zeb, Rukh attacks Ezra, Jai Kell, and the big Lothal. Ezra and Jai draw him away on a speeder bike while Zeb steals an Imperial transport and takes the hyperdrive back to Kanan and Hera. Ezra and Jai then lose Rukh, but not before he plants a tracker on their bike. Hera and Chopper depart for Yavin IV, but not until Hera and Kanan settle the simmering romantic tension between the two of them with a kiss. Governor Pryce and Rukh then follow the tracker back to the rebels, and Pryce orders a flight of TIE bombers to bombard the mountains they are hiding in. Ezra then notices the loth-wolves, they follow into the caverns. The wolves guide Ezra and the rest of the rebels on a mystic path that somehow traverses half the planet. Once they arrive at their destination, the realization that the wolves have connection with the Force sinks in for Kanan, after the wolves mention his real name, Caleb Doom. The episode concludes with Hera delivering the TIE Defender's flight data recorder to Mon Mothma on Yavin IV. Okay, so that's our summary. And with that, what did you both think of this? Jay?
Well, there's so much great stuff in this episode. You know, everything's kind of coming together. As Kanan said and Ezra said, all paths are starting to come together. And it's one of those things where you can just feel the electricity building for what's going to be coming next. Great seeing Rukh. I've always kind of, you always look up on the internet, oh, what does this character look like? Or what does this character look like? And I never really seen a Noghri before. So at least not played out like this. And I knew that they existed, of course, in the original Thrawn trilogy and whatnot. But I don't want to get into that too much right now. But that was so great to see. Of course, the kiss. Finally, right? And of course, the wolves, which I know we're probably going to spend a lot of time on, and that makes me very happy. So, Taxus, what about you?
I really enjoyed both these episodes a lot. I thought that, the Rukh part was, he could have not been in there and it would have been fine with the story, but it's cool to see him. I was desperately trying to remember back to the Heir to the Empire West End Games source book that I had, and I want to say that they did the character stylings very similar to what the picture was, but yeah, it was really cool. I really thought it was the whole escape thing, the whole separation thing, the love was really great, and the next episode it was really action packed. I was sucked into it, so yeah, all around I liked both of them.
All right,
a lot of fun.
Yeah, so, okay, well, you both brought up Rukh, so let's talk about him for a minute. I'm certainly hoping he appears in other episodes this season, and this wasn't a one-time thing. Simply because, as you mentioned, Taxus, if this is all we're going to get from him in Rebels, then he didn't really even need to be there. because he basically showed up, found Zeb, which I think if the Empire was looking just slightly harder, they could have done themselves without his assistance. And then besides a pretty good action scene, I'm not certain that he added anything to the story that was missing without a Noghri agent. What did you all think?
Well, for me, I think we're definitely going to see some more of him, because I think Thrawn is looking to employ a little bit more force, pardon the pun, because I feel like he's very frustrated with the whole Ghost crew in general. And it seems like, with him, he's not able to truly pinpoint like he normally does in his tactics and in his analysis, that they keep just slipping through his fingers. So I think he's turned to Rukh as a way to, it's almost, I don't want to say in desperation, but he's kind of pulling out the big guns here, because Rukh, at least from Legends, I remember that he could smell, like he said, I smell the Lestat, and he's not alone.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right.
But he could smell different species and their bloodlines, which is why, Leia in the EU, the Legends line, they were so devoted to her because they were devoted to Vader. So, and I think that that's going to play out a little more. At least I'd like to think so with Rukh. But we'll see. We'll see how that ends up, and not to give any spoilers for those that haven't read that trilogy, but we'll see how his relationship with Thrawn ends up, if it's the same in Rebels as it does in the books.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
We won't talk about that though. For now.
All I know is that if you see something trucking across the desert or whatever, the land like that on all fours coming at you, just start shooting.
He's creepy.
Don't stop, and by the way, does it seem like Ezra's skills are kind of regressing? I mean,
he finally used the Force to throw him, though.
Yeah,
I saw him do that. I was like, it's about dang time, Ezra.
Yeah, it just seemed a little, I don't know. It just seems like he was kind of holding back. I mean, you could have, I don't know. He's not like a fully trained Jedi, but I don't know.
Well, I think it was more of the circumstances. I think this was a surprise for Rukh to show up, and I think he underestimated him at first. I don't think he had any experience with the Noghri. One last comment on Rukh, and then we'll move on to another topic. But I was a little frustrated that Thrawn brought in this special agent, and he gets off the transport, goes charging after the Lasat, and then Governor Pryce said, enough of that. You failed. Moving on to plan B.
Yeah.
Bomb the mountains. And that's kind of where I think my frustration with his appearance in this episode comes from. If this was an introductory episode, then fine, but I really hope that he shows up a couple more times over the course of this last season of Rebels, so that, I don't know, if this is it, then it feels like a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, if he's a tracker, why not send him into the mountains after them? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think Pryce. One more thing. I think that she felt like she got her nose cut off a little bit, because she was Thrawn's gal there for a while, and then all of a sudden she gets her nose cut off by this Rukh. And so, of course, at the first chance she gets, she's going to be like, oh, yep, you're a loser. Get out of here. I'm going to do this myself. So that's what I took from it, was that, she was a little upset with that whole thing. She didn't want him there in the first place.
But there might be a reason why Thrawn's like that with her. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got to finish the book.
Oh, okay. I do. I know. I'm slacking
just throwing that
so
out
badly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Master. I have no excuse.
No, that's okay. That you point. I'm just pointing that out. That not you not finishing the book. There's a reason. I felt like that little relationship aspect was a little better this season.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So let's move on to the steamier aspect of this episode, and that would be the Kanan and Hera relationship here. Okay. I guess my comment is that they've been slowly building up to this over seasons 1, 2, and 3, and then they kicked it into a higher gear this season, and they've had numerous interrupted kisses. One prior, and then I think one this episode, and then finally, they've had this ongoing conversation about, well, what about us, and what's going to happen to us, and have you thought about us coming from Kanan? And then finally, as Hera's getting ready to leave on the U-wing, to head back to the Rebel headquarters, she pulls Kanan in for that kiss, and then leaves with that very tender "May the Force be with you" comment.
Oh.
So, did you enjoy the payoff? What did you all think?
Well, for me, I'm a little timid about how I want to feel about it, because in some ways I almost get the sense that, is this the last time we're going to see them truly together?
Oh, yeah.
And it almost reminds me of the kiss that Leia gave to Han right before he was dropped in the carbonite chamber. So you know what I mean? It was almost like Hera was basically saying, she wanted, almost in desperation, just to say, I need to tell you this now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It's a very tender moment, and they've both deserved this moment for so long. And yeah, and it was so cute to have Sabine. She's like tapping Zeb, look. And then Ryder looks, and they're all looking. So, and they're all fine, like finally too,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like one of those moments where there's a bunch of friends that know there's feelings between two people, and finally they do something about it. Mm-hmm. One of the it's different to be sure, but a comparison to the feeling I got from this, it reminded me a bit of in Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin approaches Obi-Wan and says, Master, I've disappointed you, and I haven't been the Jedi you want me to be. And then Obi-Wan responds with, you're a far wiser man than I am, and I trained you since a little boy. And then they, may the Force be with you, old friend, type of a thing. That's what the Hera's departing line made me feel, and I've got this bad feeling here, Jay, that this may be the last time we see these two like this, and that's kind of tragic, because every time I see that scene in Revenge of the Sith, I get that feeling, and I started to get that feeling during this episode.
Yeah,
what about you,
that's
Taxus?
a good call.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I missed a lot of it in the previous seasons, but I just felt like it's kind of moving really fast to, okay, they've been doing this all in the background the entire time, and we're just not seeing it, or now they just feel comfortable about being out in the open about it, or, I mean, it's great, don't get me wrong, but, I don't know, it felt not rushed, but sort of like they're, kind of, I don't know.
Well, I guess in response to that, I would say, if you remember before Rebels even started, we had those 5 mini episodes in the beginning, and there was the one that featured Kanan and Hera, and their Chopper is the go-between between them as they're yelling about what they need to do to fight off these TIE fighters. And in the end, there's that scene where Kanan is leaning over Hera, and it looks like they're about to kiss, and then Chopper comes in and at them, and they stop. And then it's kind of, there was moments at one point when Zeb and Ezra go get the mailer room fruit in season 1, where Kanan kind of makes the comments like, "Oh, we got the kids out of the house," type of thing. And there's always been this partnership between them, and it seems like at this point it's we got to quit using the excuse of the war. We've been focused on that, but if that's all we're focusing on, then we're losing because we're not getting an opportunity to take care of ourselves, type of feeling. So
yeah, that's a good point.
All right. Well, let's move on to the wolves with this one. And, we started talking about them with the last week's episodes. And, boy, did they get a whole lot more mystic this one. So just to recap, just when it looks like Ezra and Kanan and Zeb and Sabine and Ryder and Jay are all trapped, Ezra spots the white wolf. And this time everybody else sees it. And they follow the wolves to a cavern. And they follow them in. They see some markings on the wall of the loth-wolves, and then the one holds up its tail. Ezra grabs onto that. Everyone grabs his hands. They start further down the cave. We get some blue lighting on the wall. The next thing you know, they're stepping in what looks like puddles with the galaxy reflected in it. You get a flash to white. It looks like they're napping in a field with a white loth cat in the middle of it, and then they wake up and they're on the other hemisphere of the planet. What did you all think about this? Taxus, we'll start with you.
Well, I guess there's been some consternation and some fan reaction that's like, oh, how could that happen, or whatever, And it's funny because this whole this whole universe is basing itself on this concept of this thing that's greater than what we see, you know? It's everywhere, it's permeating everything, it's the Force, right? And so, just because something that like this could happen, you know, that seems to have, you would make you disbelieve, oh, that can't happen. Oh yeah, well, what about all the times that they're having stuff float through the air and get in their hands? Or shooting force lightning out of their hand? You know, I mean, it's just, I think we need to understand that there's mysteries to this energy field, the Force, that we don't know. And something crazy, great, and big like this could be something beyond the reckoning of human beings, even in the show. That whatever these loth-wolves are, they've got it figured out, you know? And I don't know. So I'm not as hard about that thing. I thought it was kind of neat. I thought it was great. You know, hey, what about a wormhole? I mean, everybody's willing to accept wormholes all over the place, but, you know, not accept this, you know? I don't know. I thought it was cool, and I really kind of liked the added mystery, but I hope we get some sort of resolution about it.
Jay?
Well, I have a few main points that definitely were glaring to me. First of all, the appearance of the 3 wolves. And, you know, going back to what we were talking about last time, we already know that the loth-wolves were basically worshipped by the Jedi that were there on Lothal. And Kanan even said that they had a deep connection to the Force. Well, what appears in 3s? The light, the dark, and the one in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
So if you think about the 3 wolves, and because I went back and I specifically looked at this, the white wolf was sitting in the middle. So that was the first thing for me that really stood out about the wolves themselves. But as far as being transported to the other side of the planet, I kind of have a little theory about that, actually. Well, number one, as we know, Ezra is very connected to animals. We saw him with the Purrgil.
Right.
And, you know, many, many other animals, the loth cat and whatnot. But, you know, as far as the hypnotic sense that was going on, that could have very easily been some sort of a force power. But, I mean, if we remember from the last time, the loth-wolf put Sabine to sleep. So why couldn't they have put them to sleep? They were big enough to transport them across the planet. They obviously were sleeping when they woke up. And they thought at first that, you know, you see the loth cat in the grass, and they actually showed them almost looking like they were sleeping in the grass. So, but when they woke up, they were on the floor of the cave. So I think that they actually put them to sleep and then transported them.
It makes sense. I guess my only question about that is it's still exceedingly fast to get that distance, and it didn't appear, based on this episode or the next one, that all that much time had passed from the time they started to enter the one cavern and left the other. To address your point about the consternation by the fan base over this, I don't have a problem that it happened. I think, for me, the issue is that there is a difference between the way the Force is portrayed in the movies and what we get in the television shows. In the movies, it is much more of an ability that is, this is not a great description, that is manipulated to do force pushes and lightning and to affect the weak-minded. Between Clone Wars and Rebels, there's this whole layer of fantasy mysticism that's placed over it. And if we just look back over Rebels and even into Clone Wars, we got things like Bendu and now the Loth-wolves and this white loth cat, Ahsoka, Mortis, all these
the Night Sisters.
Yeah, but I feel like they're more resolved. Where I was going with this is that we got a lot of issues that aren't really resolved yet, and for me, it's getting a little tiresome. It's not that I feel like I have to know every aspect of how the Force works, but, you know, when we last saw the Bendu, Thrawn took a shot at him and he disappeared, and we don't know what happened there. We still don't know what happened to Ahsoka after her duel with Darth Vader. There's a lot of questions still surrounding Mortis. And so it's kind of could we get some more resolution to at least a couple of them before we start adding a whole bunch of new mysteries?
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, we always get teased with answers, but how many years have we gone on some of these things, and they're not getting resolved. So I know maybe I should just enjoy the ride and not complain about it. But but to me, it's I wouldn't mind so much if I felt like we were going somewhere, if we were going to getting enough to really formulate a lesson out of these symbolism that we're getting. But,
well, they did say that all paths were coming together. I mean, they said that in this episode.
Do you believe it?
No.
I do. I really do, because there's got to be at least some resolution before Rebels ends. Will we get a full resolution? I don't think so, because that's where more books can go on your shelves, and you know what I mean? I mean, I think in comic books and all of this mysticism is going to carry over into a lot of other areas of the fandom, I think, for those that want to follow those paths. But
yeah, I guess I just don't think that it has. I think if you're a devotee to the television show, you should be required to cross over into the books or the comics to get your answers on some of these things.
So I agree. I agree.
So let me postulate this. I mean, we've talked about how awesome it would be to have like a series that takes place like in the Old Republic, old Republic. What if some of these things that we're seeing in Rebels will be answered in another series that takes place in a much earlier time?
It could.
That'd be pretty cool. I'm just saying. That'd be cool.
I'm hoping they move forward to the next television show. Okay, Jay, we'll get to your last point, then we got to move on to our next episode.
Okay, so yeah, real quick, two other points. You know, and I, like you said with Ahsoka, and I know that Dave has already said Ahsoka is not the wolf, but I do think that there is some relationship to her, because I was looking back at some of those Topps cards that Dave had released, you know, as part of the artists series that he did.
Yeah.
And there's one where Ahsoka is standing almost like in an aperture in a way, and there's a bunch of white wolves in a circle surrounding her. Okay.
Yeah, I remember that.
So there's one. All right. And then another one is, I was just kind of fooling around on the internet a little bit, and I saw that the white wolf specifically is a totem animal that belongs to those who can break away from the pack. And that's exactly what Ahsoka did. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Alrighty then.
So, not saying she is the wolf, but I think there's something there.
Oh, we could definitely spend another 20 minutes on this episode, but let's go ahead and move on to Crawler Commanders. Okay, so here's our summary for Crawler Commanders. This episode begins with the rebels on Lothal discussing that the Empire has jammed all signals leaving the planet. However, they pick up a nearby signal after investigating, find an ore crawler with an array capable of transmitting to the Rebel High Command on Yavin IV. Meanwhile, Hera consults with the Rebellion High Command on the TIE Defender Elite data recorder that she retrieved in the previous episode. Mothma asks her to wait outside while they discuss what to do next. Back on Lothal, Kanan, Ezra, Zeb, and Sabine take over the crawler and subdue the Trandoshan captain in charge, who is Sivo and voiced by Seth Green. Kanan and Zeb then liberate the slaves working on the crawler, and to their surprise, Vizago is among them. The Empire sends stormtroopers to investigate the ore crawler that is stalled, but the rebels successfully pose as the crew, and the troopers quickly leave. However, Sivo has escaped and sabotages the reactor. Before he can do any further damage, Ezra crawls through the ventilation and confronts them, at which point Sivo slips on Ezra's lightsaber and falls into the reactor. The episode concludes with Hera securing a commitment from the Rebel High Command to launch an attack on Lothal after she gives a rousing speech. The transmitter on the crawler allows the other rebels to talk to Hera about the upcoming battle. Okay, so there's my rather clumsy summary of that episode. This one doesn't have as many deep philosophical force discussion point type things as the previous episode. It was much more action based. One of the things I wanted to bring up first is that this Hera and the Rebel High Command, you know, she is vigorously arguing for an attack on this Lothal factory that's producing these elite TIE Defenders, or TIE Defender Elite, because they've all just acknowledged that they can't take these ships down on a one-on-one basis, that they'll get slaughtered for this. And then she gets sent out of the room. Kind of reminded me of Rogue One.
Yep.
When Jyn was trying to convince the Rebel Council to do something about the Death Star and she gets she gets shot down. Now, if you read the novelization, she gets sent out of the room and then comes back, and they still shoot her down in this case. But Hera was, and I can't figure out why. She was much more convincing. I suppose maybe it's just because something like the Death Star is just that much more threatening, that it demoralized the rebellion so thoroughly. But at this point, there's no TIE defenders in Rogue One. It seems like this attack would have had to have some sort of success. So I'm a little curious about what happened that made them so leery.
Well, I think, didn't Mon Mothma mention something about the evacuation command?
Yes. Protocol 13.
Yeah.
And that was a talking point on Twitter. And I think it was Leland Chi that pointed out that Director Krennic issued Protocol 13 when they got to Jeddah, which is why all the Imperials left the planet. But Tarkin did not issue Protocol 13 when he took the Death Star to Scarif.
Yeah.
So this seems to be it's a all Imperials evacuate the planet protocol, and generally sounds like something bad's about to go down.
So that's what was making me think that this is happening concurrent to the Jeddah event.
I don't think we're there in the timeline, though.
Okay, because I was a little confused by that.
Well, I don't think so either, because we've seen the preview for the next week's episode, and Hera shows up on Lothal with a squad of X-wings, and so I mean, it's conceivable, but we've got X-wings going to Edu, and a lot of things happening in Rogue One. This seems like if they were trying to do Lothal and Edu and Jeddah and everything else at the same time, that would have overloaded the rebellion's capabilities. And also, I realize it's a cartoon with a much smaller budget, but have you seen how sparsely populated Yavin IV is at this time? I mean,
it seems to be, yeah.
They have some Y-wings out there. When the Ghost shows up, that's as full as it gets. They don't have as many ships. There's no Admiral Raddus. There's no fleet in orbit. No, not that we've necessarily seen that, but I think we're still a little ways away from Jeddah and the events of Rogue One.
I do too, because you think about with the Ahsoka novel and now what we're seeing on Lothal. Basically, the Empire goes in, they devastate a planet, they take all of its resources, and then they pack up and they leave. So I just think that that's an order that says, okay, we're done here. There's nothing left. Let's go. So whatever planet they happened to be on, that's where they were leaving from. So they just happened to learn that was maybe a command. And of course, we know that comes in later for Jeddah. But yeah, I don't think we're at that point yet. I think they're talking about a different planet.
Okay.
Yeah, but here's the other issue. At the end of the previous episode, we just talked about this line that Kanan was talking about, that the Empire is up to something more sinister on Lothal, just beyond producing the TIE defenders. That he senses something much more drastic and sinister going on. So I don't know. I'm kind of the belief here that there is something beyond the TIE defender that's going to be much more serious for Lothal, the fate of Lothal, just beyond using up the resources on that planet.
Well, Kanan did say that they keep being drawn back there. For some reason, they keep being drawn back. And I saw someone had speculated on Twitter, I believe, that perhaps Kanan actually was born on Lothal. And that's where he just doesn't remember, because he was so young when he was recruited as a Padawan or a youngling. So maybe that will come out.
I kind of have the belief at this point that Kanan is going to have a fate similar to Ahsoka's that we're not really going to know or understand it for some time.
Well, I do kind of, in a way, I do kind of buy into that theory that Kanan might be from Lothal, just because of the fact that the wolf breathed his name, his real name, to him.
Certainly. So
there's that connection.
Well,
but we'll see.
What did you all think of all the action on the ore crawler?
I thought it was great. We finally got Zeb's big fight, and it kind of felt like something from an Indiana Jones movie.
Yes.
And also...
And a light whip.
Yeah.
I got the name from...
yes, that's the first thing I thought of, too.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking of how efficient they are as a team. It's like they're finally all kind of firing on all cylinders, but I'm still seeing like Kanan's still going to a blaster at some point, you know, when he's searching around the lower levels. Yeah, I mean, it was some great callbacks, you know, Ezra hunting through the vents, you know, looking for the captain from the first season. I thought it was kind of dark when the captain fell in and he was like, have a nice trip. See you next fall. You know, it's like, whoa, Ezra, that wasn't cool. You know, I thought you were rising above, but I don't know. But yeah, the action was wonderful through this, and I thought the Vizago part was pretty cool, especially where he's sweating the Imperial searching through the bridge.
There's a lot of really great nuggets in this whole episode. Like you said, the various parts of the action kind of all came together as puzzle pieces in a way, and also there was a lot of humor in this one too. It kind of lightened the mood as compared to the really heavy mythological deep kind of thing from the Kindred. Right. But we got to see Ezra's voice talents as he was trying to imitate Sipo. So that was, and of course Vizago is hilarious. And as always, and he's really lightened up too. You know, he was like Mr. Hard Man at first, and then now he's really kind of the goofy one. He almost reminds me of Hondo a lot. You know, as we got to know Hondo, he was more lighthearted, and he honestly thought that they came to rescue him.
Yeah, that was funny, especially at the end when he says, Vizago knows that you didn't come to rescue me, but anyways, I want to help. So, yeah, it was good to see Vizago again. I love the way he talks. It's, you know, his constantly referring to himself in the third person, and just, you know, he's got a bit of Hondo in him. Yeah,
yes, definitely.
But and I also liked Ezra's voice talents. It's been a real theme this season when he tried to imitate Brom Titus and now Sivo, but and they all just deferred to him for that too.
Yeah, they did. They were like, he just is right. And how about his little Kenobi throwback? Hello there.
Yes.
You know, that was awesome. That was cool. I was cracking up.
That was really cool.
So, but yeah, I did not realize that they were both Trandoshans, the captain and the taskmaster that Zeb had fought. So I'd always kind of in my mind had Bosky Bosk, you know, as the premier type Trandoshan. So I realized then, well, okay, that makes sense. It's like the Utapans, where they have sort of the two different species, but yet they're one.
Yeah, or just different heights.
I learned something. Yeah.
They made a big deal out of that on Rebels Recon about how they've been trying to get away from making all the Trandoshans look like Bosk. So you hit the nail right on the head there, Jay. But that's so you can have smaller ones and wiry looking ones. They all don't have to be these super tall, buff looking alien guys. But
right, yeah. And I didn't even get to see Rebels Recon yet, so I'm glad that I picked that out because,
All right. Well, why don't we go around the table? Everyone can give a final thought. And if you want to give out a grade for these episodes, you can do that as well. Jay, let's start with you.
I thought they were both great, especially after the last two episodes. As you guys know, I was okay with them, but these two really had a lot to offer in a lot of different ways, and I really do feel that they are definitely leading us somewhere. And I'm hoping, like I said, that we'll get that resolution. And I do hope, this is one thing I didn't get to mention earlier, that we see some more of Jai. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Jai Kell, yeah.
Jai Kell, yeah. I like him, so I'm kind of hoping we get to see a little bit more, his character develops a little bit more, but it'll be interesting to see how the whole Rukh thing plays out with Thrawn, and you know how the Kanan and Ezra relationship as Master Padawan kind of thing ends up maybe either breaking up or staying together, and then of course Kanan and Hera. So of course, as usual, there's more questions than answers, but I would definitely rate these as an A. I'm giving them an A, probably in the 94 range. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Taxus?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about 94 as well, to be honest with you, because I mean, I really thought the second episode was, I mean, it was really action packed. It wasn't you know, I don't know. We talked a little bit about fan service and everything. There might have been a couple things at first I thought, well, you know, maybe they're just doing this just to close some loopholes, some loose ends. But yeah, it was fun to watch. It had me entertained. The first episode, I enjoyed the mystery behind it. I, you know, thought, especially the ending, the payoff for that was pretty cool. So yeah, I'm going to go with the 94 as well.
Well, I'm going to bring you all down. The first episode was interesting to me. This grade is subject to revision later based on what they do later in the season. So I'm almost tempted to call it incomplete, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give it an 85 simply because, well, the two big reasons. One, if this is all we get from Rukh, then I'm going to be very disappointed. Because you might as well not have had him in the episode if this is it. If he shows up later, then I'm willing to mark this back up as a perfectly fine introduction. Two, it's not that I'm opposed to the Force mysticism. I just feel like we're getting more shoveled on us with no closure to anything else that's come before. And I just kind of feel like it's being mystical for the sake of being mystical at this point. I hope that's not it. I haven't had a lot of time to digest everything that happened in this episode, so I'm willing to be convinced at some other time that needs to be, I need to improve my score on that. With that being said, for Crawler Commandos, I'm giving that one a 92. Simply because I felt like that episode did exactly what it was trying to do, which was be a more action-oriented episode that is setting up the upcoming attack. It got the rebels on the ground in Lothal back in touch with Rebel High Command. I loved the Hera moments where she was making her case to High Command and convinced them to do to launch the attack. So that's where I go with those two. But so, you know, Scoundrels, everyone listening out there, we want to know what you think. Send us an email at sqpod@retrozap.com and share your thoughts. Before we go, do either of you have anything coming up this week that the Scoundrels should be on the lookout for?
Well, for me, I'm actually doing another Rebels Reactions about the same set of episodes. So you'll get to hear me talk twice if you tune into Rebels Reactions through Coffee with Kenobi. And that's the only thing I really have coming up right now, other than some of my blogs that I'll be dropping next month. So, but right now it's kind of quiet on the Western Front.
Okay, Taxus?
Well, my hot space opinions about Rebels is way too far extreme to be invited on any other Rebels reaction shows. So, until then, I'm on the Geek Supreme next Tuesday, and we're actually doing the Lucky Listener episode. So, if you want to sign up for that, go out to assemblyofgeeks.com, look for the Geek Supreme, and you can sign up to be part of the game and possibly win a Stranger Things 2 fun package full of things. So, yeah, it's out at assemblygeeks.com. There with Scott Murray, Regina Davis, and, of course, the incomparable Jeff McGee next Tuesday.
All right. And as for me, I'm, of course, on Warp Trails with my wife, reviewing episodes of Star Trek Discovery, and we are about to get the mid-season finale for that as well. And there's apparently a bunch of twists that we're going to see there. So be looking for that probably Tuesday of next week. And beyond that, of course, I'm always doing my comic book reviews on retrozap.com with the Star Wars number 38, which is Kieran Gillen's first issue as writer. So be on the lookout for that. Okay, so if you want to find us on social media, we are at SQPod on Twitter and Instagram. And on Facebook, you can find us at facebook.com/SQPod. As I mentioned earlier, you can email us at sqpod@retrozap.com. And then if you want to follow Darth Taxus on Twitter, he's at Darth Taxus, Jay's at Joyce Krebs, and I am at DJKVER2. Speaking of RetroZap, we are a proud part of the RetroZap.com podcast network. The network currently features 21 shows. Some of them you probably are familiar with. So if you want to subscribe to the network feed, you can get all of them in one place. That's going to do it for this Scoundrel special edition. We'll talk to you all real soon with another edition of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Until then, may the Force be with you.
Like Mother said, once a scoundrel, always a scoundrel.